to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Before I start the show, I want to give you a special invitation to meet me in Connecticut this coming October 10th, 2019. It is going to be an outstanding full-day event co-sponsored by the Stamford Waterside Design District and Aspire Design and Home. I'll be speaking in the morning, and then we'll have lunch together, and then I'll be moderating a panel with Amy Hirsch, Linda Ruderman, and Melissa Lindsay. This will be followed by cocktails and a book signing. And hint, hint, the first 100 RSVPs that also show up will get a free copy of my second book. So RSVP by going to LuAnnNigara.com, look under the tab Events and Coaching, all right? You also, if you're following me on Instagram at LuAnn Nigara, we're always posting my whereabouts and my shenanigans, all right? Now, today's episode. This is another one of those rare shows where the guest boldly pulls back the curtain on what it's like to be an entrepreneur, to have everything on the line, to be responsible, and to go through some really tough times, okay? You remember recently, Elisa Gray, she was on the show, number 451. She did exactly the same thing. And I have to give you a reminder, if you didn't hear Wendy Glaister's episode number 386, that was also a powerful moment of sharing what it's really like sometimes, okay? And today, it's Taylor Spellman here, sharing her recent Come to Jesus lesson, all right? She said she wanted to share it so that maybe you didn't have to make the same mistake. If you remember, Taylor was on the podcast way back, episode 106, and that was the day I fell in love with her. All right, Taylor is crack up out loud funny, and she is a heck of a hashtag smart lady. 2 traits I just adore. So if you missed that first episode, go back. You will not be disappointed, okay? Now, I also want you to take a moment to go to taylorspellman.com to learn more about Taylor, her business, and how at any one time she is managing upwards of $50 million of real estate, interior architecture, and design, all under her direction, all right? This is in addition to all the press that she has and the Bravo TV shows. Think about this level of business as you listen to Taylor today, and then you can really contemplate the gravity of the challenge that she was facing, all right? A quick thanks to My Doma Studio for sponsoring the podcast. My Doma Studio is your go-to resource for your interior design business with features for client and vendor communication, package creation, and QuickBooks integration. My Doma Studio is your secret weapon for enhancing your firm's professionalism, efficiency, and profitability. See for yourself. Go to mydomastudio.com/awelldesignedbusiness. All right. And once you listen to Taylor today and fall in love with her, be sure to come meet her in person at High Point with me, Sandra Funk, and Lori Paranjape on Sunday, October 20th, 2019 at Surya at 2:00 p.m. This panel titled Confidence Sells is co-sponsored by My Doma Studio and Surya. It is going to be pretty insane because this combination of ladies is pure dynamite, okay? All right, here we go. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. I want to introduce you to Taylor Spellman. Hey, Taylor, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business again.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Me
back.
Too. Yeah, I know. So here's the funny thing is that We have been supposed to meet a couple of times since LuAnn Like Our Live, and through crazy happenstances, it's been rescheduled. But today, our recording, we finally got a chance to catch up before recording, since seeing each other at LuAnn Live last March in New Jersey.
Yes.
And you just blew my doors off in this pre-air conversation. And you said to me, you explained to me what you're going to explain to us. I didn't get all the details, so I'm going to learn it as my listeners learn it. But I have to say that I was surprised, and I'm grateful for you for suggesting this interview in this topic. So, Taylor, instead of keeping everybody in suspense, tell me what you said to me when I said, "So how you doing, lady?"
For the record, I am good. So that's
Yes.
one way to start. I'm very good. But yeah, so I was just saying to you that when you called me to do LuAnn Live, it was like 6 months in advance or something like that. It was, to me, it felt like a million years away. And I said, yeah, I would love to do it. I'm excited. Thank you, whatever. But the truth of the matter was, I was in that moment going through a absolutely horrific period in my business, and ultimately, I guess, in my life, because my business is so connected to my own health and wealth and mental, health, that I thought to myself, if it's possible for me to walk and talk and put on clothing by the time that LuAnn Live event hits, I will be surprised and very impressed if I'm able to function by the time that event happens. Because at the time, my business was just absolutely, you could argue it had gone out of business because of a series of terrible events that had occurred. And I was just sick and shaking and desperately trying to figure out, how to salvage this thing. Because a lot of people in my life were like, hey, cool, game over. You're done. It's over. Go get a job elsewhere.
That's crazy.
So yeah, that's where I was. So thanks for the call. It gave me hope.
Well, I mean, and I'm glad that you started by saying you're good now, okay? Because now that it gives me the ability to giggle with you over it. But there's nothing funny about picturing you in that state of mind. And I want to say two things about that, Taylor, okay? And it didn't occur to me to say it off air, and I'm going to say it now. If at any point in your life you're ever in that situation, whether I've called you or not, you can call me, and you could have told me then, and I would have done anything I could to help you through that, whether that was business advice, whether that was just holding your hand, whether that was just sitting next to you and crying, because that breaks my heart to think of you in that situation.
I really appreciate that. And one of the many things that was actually fascinating for me being at LuAnn Live was, I was like, I really have been kind of just on my own for all this time. And that wasn't really a conscious choice, just kind of what happened. So for me to be there with all of those amazing people, and everyone sharing, data, but they're also sharing emotions, and they're sharing knowledge. It was like, wow, and I was reminded of what you created in terms of having that community that it didn't even occur to me. And then, we're in that amazing room and everyone's kind of sharing war stories. And I was like, this is great, and it reminded me that you're right. You are an absolute resource. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yes. And it's so funny because, again, hindsight, I had no idea what you were going through. And I don't know if you remember, but when you left that Monday and you looked at me and you said, this was amazing. I'm so glad I was here. Now, of course, I didn't understand the depth of it for you at the time. But do you remember I hugged you and I said, stay with me, sweetie.
Yes.
Stay with me. Come in my posse and come where I go. Right?
Yes. I very much remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I was
crazy.
at your feet, weeping. I'm like, okay, thank you.
So what was it, Taylor? What was it that what the business was going through that you felt at that point it was really ready to be shuttered?
Yeah. So I feel like it was just a lot of different things. And one of the things that I think a lot about is that, saying, follow your passion and the money will come. And I've kind of edited it in my mind that it should read, follow your passion and the money will come. And when the money comes, be very clear with what you want to do with it, because everybody around you will know exactly what they want to do with your money. Mm-hmm. And that's a very dangerous place to be in if you're not prepared. Mm. And
Go ahead. No. So I was just gonna say, like bad business advice, or just people with hands out, and people with hands out. And and on top of it, we had an accountant who was just blatantly stealing. Oh, see. Off the top.
And I think I was in a weird position because I started this particular company. I sold my first company and started this second one. I got a new office, got my team situated, and I flew to LA to shoot that show.
I love that show. I wish it was longer.
Yeah, it's a little short, but yeah. I've been working on a new show, so it's fairly confidential, but that's going to be really exciting.
Good.
That's neither here nor there. So
you belong on TV. You're so good on TV. Oh my God.
Thank you, LuAnn. You and my mom agree. But wait, what were we saying?
So you're saying you flew out to LA.
Right. So I started my business with people doing things and setting up protocols, quote unquote protocols, really without me being there. Mm. Now, yeah, I was out shooting a show in LA, but that could happen to anybody because we trust, I think, most of us trust each other. You trust humans, you trust people. And so I trusted the people around me. And I think in the end, when I realized what was happening, some people were doing malicious things and some people weren't doing malicious things, but I was still being very much taken advantage of because, if the money's flowing in and everyone's just grabbing into it and thinks that I'm a walking ATM machine, no one's going to really stop it unless the ATM machine breaks down and says, what the heck is going on? Right. And that's what happened in this case. But basically, I remember the person who was handling my money, and this story is I watch a lot of American Greed and Dateline, I should have known. I love that show. And I was, this particular person went on vacation. And so she says, okay, everything's set, whatever. I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks and everything's set. And then when I'm back, whatever. She said, okay, fine, bye. So she's gone and a check bounces that we had received. So because it bounced, I wasn't able to just function as normal and, function off that money and tell everybody where to go, whatever. I had to kind of look deep and say, hold on. It was now what do we do? Because this big check bounced, blah, 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 whatever. And so I called her in Florida and I said, hey, I can't make sense of really anything that's happening here. I'm trying to figure this out, but I can't make sense of anything. She said, no, it's not hard. She said, first of all, look at the Post-it that's stuck to my computer. That explains pretty much everything right there. So that was strike one.
Right.
I said, okay. And then she said, and then go into my third drawer on the left. And then the checks that are folded to the right are outgoing. And the checks that are folded to the left are incoming, outgoing checks. I was I just started to black out. I was what? What is going on? This is the system.
Right.
This is the system, Taylor. I knew at that point, I'm you are in big trouble. And that was just scratching the surface of, okay, what's happening. And part of the reason why I think that system was in place was because I can't figure that out, obviously. So finally when she came back, I'm okay, I need a P&L and I need it now. And I need to know what is going on and where we're at because there's a lot of money flowing, but the Post-it system is not sufficient.
It's not going to work for me.
Yeah. I was
So the thing is, at LuAnn Live, Peter Lang, the designer CPA, he shared a similar story of a company where, remember he said how the person who was in charge of one of his accounts payroll was literally never out sick. Like sick, flu, would come in on a Friday, no matter heck or high water. And then finally something happened that legitimately was unavoidable. And this person was so ill that they couldn't come in. And somebody else in the company was tasked with walking around and handing out the payroll checks, right? And the person that was tasked with it comes back to the principal and says, I've got these 3 extra checks and I don't know who these people are. And here that person's, that company's bookkeeper had like family members on payroll. Just going out. And Corey Damon said the same thing. He had the past payroll person that had, half her family's cell phone bills on his payroll.
Exactly.
And so to your point, and the thing is, look, there's 2 different ways that we as business owners don't manage our money properly. We're either small and new and don't understand it, and we place that trust in a bookkeeper and an accountant that is not earned yet, but we say, I don't know how to do it and they know how to do it, so at least I have an accountant, at least I have a bookkeeper, it should be fine. And then we have people like yourself that, you are legitimately running a huge business. You are flying to California, you're filming a show, you're staging multi-million-dollar penthouses. Like yours is like, for lack of understanding, like Corey Damon said to us, now I look at the books every single week. And like my husband looks every single morning, right?
Yeah.
You're just thinking that this is my job now. My job now is to be the big person who drives the machine and brings the business in. And I've got people behind me that are doing their job and they're trustworthy.
Right.
And it's
not always like that.
No. And to your point, some you found was malicious, but then the other is negligence, right? It's just
negligence.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's a fine line in terms of intention and integrity, but the result is the same.
Yes.
And I had to reconcile that within my own heart, because I knew a lot of the people around me weren't like consciously, maliciously robbing me blind, but everyone was doing the same exact thing.
Whoa.
And I think one of the ladies, I'm drawing a blank on what her name was at LuAnn Live, was like, we all have a relationship with money, and it's typically from our childhood.
Yes.
Something in our childhood has shaped how we deal with money and our relationship with money. And to me, I very much understood that. And I feel like that actually comes all the way back to this, because I really didn't think much about money before I realized what had happened. And I think to a degree, I actually reached, quote unquote, a lot of success because I wasn't driven by money. I was driven by the mission. I was driven by what I care about. And I think my quote unquote gift. But that's another fine line, because, okay, great. Now you have the money. So what, pay attention, doll face. Like, put on your glasses, get out the Excel spreadsheet. It's showtime.
Yes. And the thing is, to explain that a little further, your money story, it might have been Michelle Williams that said that, because she often will talk about that as well. But your money story growing up, just to be clear, it wasn't that you weren't motivated by the money because you grew up with a silver spoon and just expected it to be there. It's a different money story for you.
Right. It's kind of arguably the opposite.
Right.
And that's the thing. I think, like my best friend from childhood, she didn't really have a concept of money because she grew up so wealthy that she just was like, of course, there's $1 million floating around. And I like watch her sometimes. I'm like, that's not reality. But so that's one way to process it and view it. But for me, I grew up, we didn't have money like at all. And I think that there's 2 sides of that. So one side of that shaped my experience with home. And we've talked about this, that I grew up in a home, and it was a loving home. My family and I were very close, and we all love each other, and it's really special. But I always knew we were going to lose our house growing up. And I think that kind of instilled this fear in me because I always knew it was going to be taken away because my parents couldn't afford the home. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we were in a little tiny house. It wasn't like it was like
right, not living above their means.
Yeah, exactly. But the positive of that came in the fact that we always were really conscious of and grateful when we got to be around the dinner table, when we all sat in front of the fire and talked, because it felt special, because we were grateful, because we had this moment. And I think when things aren't assumed, you know, we take a lot of things for granted. Right. Obviously, most people take their home for granted. Of course I have a home. You know, from a very young age, I didn't have that luxury. But it made me understand how important it is to have a home that is safe and you're protected in and builds you up from, you know, life, which can be brutal. And it made me really value that, which I think has shaped my work, you know, to this day, because I don't necessarily look at a home as a luxury good. You know, this is a very critical, necessary thing next to food, water, shelter. And don't get me wrong, I love when someone calls me and says, hey, like, I just bought an $8 million house. Will you help me decorate it? I'm like, well, yeah, you know, like, that's fantastic. But I also love when someone's like, hey, can we zip to Target and Walmart and just like make me feel better about my space? You know, absolutely. I love that, you know?
Right.
But anyway, in turn, I think in not having money, I didn't, you know, I value my family and love. And that was more what I was focusing on. And then all this, I never really thought that much about money, other than the fact that, yeah, I don't want to like be in poverty when I grow up. That was sort of the goal, but that's a low bar. I wasn't exactly shooting for the stars there.
So funny.
But I think all of a sudden when I got this quote unquote success, it was like, yeah, okay, now I understand the value of money, because A, I would like to have it now that I've tasted it. And then B, I would like everybody's grimy paws out of this pot, because this is like a huge problem. And because I valued the experience of working with all these people and like, that's what I was loving, and the creativity behind it. And everyone's like, yeah, cool, as they're just like cashing their checks on the side, and everyone's just like cha-ching, 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 which, you know, great. You're welcome.
Is there anybody that's from this original circle of your team that is with you still, that was worth keeping, that you know is trusted, or did you have to disseminate the whole thing?
So what happened was and this is something, again, I would be just as a little cautionary tale, I hired some of my friends to come and work for me. That's a very dangerous game, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, yeah, come on, whatever. And I had two friends who were going through a really hard time in their life. So I hired them to help them, because I wasn't sure how they were going to get money. And I was thinking like, okay, I can help you out. Right. You know, you can't run a business like that. And again, that's the same thing. I was kind of running stuff from my heart versus my brain. And that is another fine line. But what happened was, my best friend from childhood, we met when we were 5 years old. She and I have been, you know, she's basically worked for me our entire lives, because I've counted on her as my number one confidant and sort of silent business partner. So finally she was like, yeah, cool. Like, I'm going to get paid now, because enough's enough. Like, she would be in her office at like wherever job she had, shut the door and take my call, and we would have a powwow for 3 hours. So finally we're like, all right, this is unethical for your job. Like, just come over and work for me. So she was the one who started to see how deeply taken advantage I was. And I think as my best friend, she was like blowing this massive whistle and was like, absolutely not. Like, this is unacceptable. And she's the one that really opened my eyes. So she was working for me for probably a year. And she was like, looked at me one day and she said, you know, we have to fire everyone, right?
Wow.
And I just was like, in the fetal position, like, are you sure? And she's like, are you sure? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm sure. And so that's when we had to let go of pretty much everybody and hire every single person new. Everything, everything was new. So yes, I have her. And we actually had one intern at the time who was an absolute standout. And this intern had no idea what was going on, obviously.
Right.
And then I just slowly fired every single person around her. So the intern just turned to me one day and she said, "It's okay if the answer is yes, but are we going out of business?" Poor little girl. I was like, "You're a very astute person. That's why I like you." I was like, but I was like, "You can only take my word for me you can only take my word for this, but no, we're not. We are just completely restructuring and you are safe and sound and you're not going anywhere." And as a matter of fact, we gave her a raise just to make sure she knew how much we valued her. I'm like, "You are not on the chopping block," but I understand why you're concluding that.
I have to say, when you started to say the story about your best friend, if it was going to end with she was the one that was at the heart of it, I was oh my God, I can't. I was like hanging here thinking, please don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that. That would have been. Because then I can't even imagine getting out of the fetal position from that. To have colleagues, people that you've hired, acquaintances, to all take advantage and be negligent and be malicious. But then if you had said that, I was just going to be like, oh no, la la la, I can't hear it.
Start driving over here with a bottle of wine.
I know, we have to have footy pajamas on for 3 days and cry about this. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, so she just gets into it and she starts going through things and she's just saying to you, "Taylor, there's something," what is that Hamlet line? "Something stinks in Rome," or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Something in Denmark. I don't know. I'm not a Shakespearean scholar here, but
everyone Google it. That's it was that. Okay.
What? Yeah. I mean, so what's the timeline on this? So I speak to you in December. And you at this point are basically out of business pretty much. You're essentially, this is before everybody has been let go, after everybody's let go, and you're trying to, you're just at the thick of it and recuperating. Where are you at?
So actually, that month of December was, I was in a new office. That was part of the restructuring. So almost everybody had been gone except for maybe there was 2 people left. Mm-hmm. And it was Christmas, and I was a day or 2 before Christmas hauling to try to finish this staging job, and I was by myself, and as I'm there by myself, I'm trying to finish it. I know everybody's having a nice life at home with their families, like singing some sort of carol and like, by a fireplace, and I'm sitting here, like my finger was bleeding, and I sat down for a second, and I'm so tired. I thought to myself, okay, how am I going to make payroll next week? All right. And I started to think how I'm going to make payroll to pay people who aren't working. And I was like, I just had that aha moment. I'm like, Taylor, the jig is up. Like, this is officially the end. And I was like, I don't care how I'm going to make payroll because I don't care. It just was a huge shift of I have to think of myself now because this is survival mode. Fire these people tomorrow. I didn't do it the next day because I felt bad because it was Christmas. But anyway, not the point. So that was probably the absolute end. And it was the start of, okay, now we're really lean. Now we have the right structures in place. We put in something called Harvest. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It's just like how you track
time tracking, right?
Yeah, tracking, receipt tracking, budgets, like all these. Like we had a lousy warehouse. That warehouse was also swiping my card constantly for moves or rent. I said to my money manager, the person who was managing our finances, I said, "Do you get a bill before they swipe the card?" And she said, "No, they swipe it for what they need." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, if there is a penny swiped on this card without my permission first, everyone will be fired on the spot. This is the party's over. And that's what I really learned. Everyone's just swiping away, having a ball, swiping. And then of course you notice things. So I told the warehouse, if you swipe my card again without my consent, we're going to have a very serious problem. I want a bill before every single swipe. Then you get those bills, and then you're seeing discrepancies. We weren't there for 5 hours. We were there for 3 hours. There wasn't 4 men on the job. There were 2. Yeah. Edit the bill, send it back. You see stuff like that. And to Corey, when he was like, I'm checking every bill, I'm like, yep, it's the only way.
Exactly. It's it's funny because I've said it a dozen times on the show. Vin does it every morning. He looks at the bank account every morning. He looks at all the credit card accounts because, we've got 7 or 8 people all with an Amex in our business. And every single month, in addition to checking it every single day, every single month, every single one of us must turn in our receipts for the charges that we do. And the thing about that is what it does is it makes sure that people know, people that you love, that work for you, that you trust. It just makes sure that they're not tempted to do crazy stuff, because I guarantee you that warehouse in the beginning, it was one of two things. The warehouse has never been well run and they don't know if they have 2 men or 4 men on the job, which is a whole nother problem. But it's also entirely possible that in the beginning, that warehouse was on the up and up. And the more they saw that, hey, this account doesn't check, this account doesn't pay attention, boom, boom, boom. And there is an invoice for a yard of fabric. There is an invoice for a bracket that doesn't have to be shown to 3 people. 3 people in our office have to look at every single invoice we get. Vinny has to look at it, Adriana has to look at it, and the salesperson whose job it's connected to has to look at it. And then it's approved to pay. And people think we're nuts when we go to window treatment conventions, when we go to different places and we talk with other business owners about the way we run our business. They look at us like, you're a little extra. And we're like, we've been ripped off before. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, this is, and almost every financial system that we have in our business, other than the baseline financial systems of accounting, but all the extra, like 3 people have to look at an invoice, or the red pen system that we have that I talked about in my first book, all of these extra systems have all been developed because of things that went wrong. Either an employee stole from us, or a vendor is consistently, and like to your point with the warehouse, it's either malice or negligence, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It really doesn't. And that's why every single one of our systems, and Taylor, I have had a half a dozen conversations in the last year with designers, not just the ones at LuAnn Live, but other designers at High Point, at coaching events, where they tell me they have been, that their bookkeeper has stolen from them, that their accountant has this and la, 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 and employees stealing from them. It happens. You cannot assume that it doesn't. And the thing is, it's just like anything else. When someone has no intention of either falling prey to negligence or being malicious, they have no problem with the standards and the rules that you set.
Exactly.
You want that accountability. You want from yourself as an employee to be protected so that your owner knows that there's nothing crazy, shady going on.
Right. And it's the old adage, like my mom growing up, she'd always say, you only suspect in others what you're capable of in yourself. So naively, none of this thing, it never occurred to me that anyone would be doing anything unethical.
Right.
It never occurred to me.
Right, because you were good to them. They were your employees. You were all building a business and a lifestyle together, and you just thought, hey, we're all good here.
Right. And I think I learned about money in this experience through the eyes of my employees, because I noticed a lot of people were there just to get paid. And that's fine, because that's what a job is, so I can't be like, hey, this is, I understand that. But I like to be surrounded by people who care about what we're doing.
Right.
And that's an interesting note about hiring now, because I can kind of tell, like what the person's intention is, or if they come in and they're like, oh my gosh, I love design and I love this, or I love architecture, you can tell. Or if someone shows up and is like, so wait, do we get overtime? Like immediately asking these questions that I'm like, okay, hold the phone, We had one person that came in for a review, and I said, okay. And she's like, well, I'd like to start this meeting off with the fact that I need a raise. I said, okay. this is a review. You've been here for 2 months. I'd like to start this meeting off with the fact that you no longer work here. This is working out. Thanks for everything.
Right. It's not your meeting, sweetie.
Yeah. You're cute. No.
Oh my God. It's crazy the nerve that people have, isn't it? You just look at them like sometimes and you're just like, I'm sorry. Like your name on the door, your name on that check. Stop.
No, it was great. I was like, are you out of your mind?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, some people are gonna just do what they can. They're gonna try to get away with what they can. And I think if it's your business, not to say that I'm bitter or like leery of people, because I'm not.
Right.
But I watch now everybody working around me in the most strategic, intelligent, efficient, integrity-filled fashion, because I, through this terrible experience, got real clear about what I expect from people now, and the accountability that I'm holding everybody to. Right. And you know, that it is about money, but it's also just about how you handle yourself. Right. You know, it's very connected, and I guess I didn't really know how connected it was because I assumed everybody was doing good stuff, but they were not.
Right. Well, I mean, it's such a heartbreaking lesson to learn. And it sounds like to me, clarify, but it sounds like to me that the crisis was strictly an internal crisis of this understanding and knowing and managing where your money was, that it was never a crisis of a dry pipeline or clients not calling. It was, and so if that's the case, that's what's the silver lining, is that once you got it tightened up on the inside, then it was just a matter of rebuilding the coffers again, and so that you could be profitable. Is that correct, all of that? Or was there a crisis on both sides?
Well, I think there was a little bit of a dry up to a small degree, which is why I started to notice more things, because there was a cash flow issue.
Okay.
So because there was some of a cash flow issue, everything got highlighted quick.
Understand, right.
The money wasn't just as much pouring in. That said, I had to kind of take a time out to go in and fix all this infrastructure stuff and do all this restructuring and make sure everything had a system in place. And that kind of took me out, because I'm sure a lot of designers can relate. It's like, you have to to be really good at running your own business, you know, you need to be a creative and be a super creative, but then on the other side, you know, be really diligent and brilliant with making sure, you know, the math is right, the margins are right, your goals are right, all that stuff. And because I was so behind the 8 ball, I had to kind of go back in, do all of this infrastructure stuff. And I felt like in the past couple months, have felt like I'm re-entering. I had to sign an NDA for this massive, exciting project. And I was like, you know what? If I did get this, I would be able to handle it right now, because I just did all of the work building out our basement, you know, and making sure that foundation was good.
Right. Well, it's the truth. You needed to, you know, pull back, regroup, and work on the business for a period of time. And really, I love that, Taylor, that you did that. And like I said, what's funny is picturing the weight of the reality on you as a person and as a woman and as my friend. Like, I'm sick in my stomach for it. However, there's another part of me that is so glad that you have this huge learning lesson. And of course, we're through it. You're building up. So it's easy to say in hindsight that, oh, this was a great lesson. But it is a huge, great favor in your business life, Taylor, that it happened and that you came through it, because it will never happen to you again. You are not asleep at the wheel any longer.
Right. And I think I guess I'm thinking 2 things for everybody who's listening. One is about your business plan, and then the other is about figuring out how to balance, you know, your 50% creative and your 50% business side of your mind and body. So the one hand, when we were at LuAnn Live, one like young lady came up to me and she was like, okay, this is my idea for, I quit my job and I jumped in, and I took this job, whatever, but like I messed up and I'm already in debt and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, well, do you have a business plan? And she said, no. And I said, yeah, I know you don't. You know, I can tell because
I hear it. Like, and I hear me and you from years ago, right?
Yeah. It's like, I think for me, I had a business plan of how I was going to start the business and how I was going to get successful and whatever. So I got that. That actualized itself. What I didn't have a business plan was for part 2, which is, you know, I had the plan for like how to start and get where I wanted to go. What's the plan for when you got to where you've been, or more importantly, are you sure you're keeping up with your goals as they unfold? I mean, it's in a way a great problem to have, but you know, like I think my thinking was for when I was just sitting in my own apartment 8 hours a day starting this company. You know, I never revamped the goals.
Right.
So that would be one thing, to make sure you're constantly doing that, because how do you know where the ship's going, you know? And then the second thing is just, you know, Corey said it well, but making sure, you know, because I hate that concept of, or really dislike that concept of like, okay, well, I'm a creative. And actually, that was what I knew. That's when I knew I was in big trouble, because my real accountant, when I called him and said, I need like a lot of documents and I need to come to your office because I feel sick, because I can tell there's a lot of really bad stuff happening. And he said that sentence, you know, don't worry about it. You're the creative. Don't worry. Everything's fine. And that's when, you know, I was like, oh, crap.
This is worse than I thought.
This is worse than I thought. And I was right.
Everybody's marginalizing me and saying, it's okay, sweetie. Go over there and just be fabulous and bring the money in. We'll all figure out your money for you. Don't you worry.
Go chop your throw pillow, sweetie. Yeah, that's when you're like, all right, it's go time. This is serious.
Yeah, I need somebody that understands that they need to take me seriously and not just pat me on the head and say, chop a pillow, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. No.
And
that's so true.
And as a woman and as an interior designer, you know, those are two things that people are like, oh, you're cute.
Right.
It's like, oh, you think so? Watch what's about to go down. You know?
I'm going to show you cute.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. So what you're really saying is that, you know, you have your business plan and you dream a little bit. You have reality in it and you have some dream in it. There's always room for both, but you reevaluate each year. It's, you know, what did we reach our goals? What did we set financial goals? Did we set gross revenue goals? Did we set gross margin goals? Did we reach them? And what did we spend on marketing? And did we overspend? And what worked and what didn't? It's the consistent, constant reevaluation. And what's our goal for next year? What's our goal for 3 years? What's our goal for 5 years? And to always look back. And that's part of your vernacular now. And that's part of your world now, that you are on top of that and thinking about that, as opposed to just being every day and creating and doing what you were doing and hoping and assuming that behind you people were keeping it locked down.
Right, right.
I have to tell you.
I actually have to say,
go ahead.
There's something like, it feels really good to know where your money is, even if you don't have it yet.
Yes.
You know, like I'm still fixing up the damage of this tornado of people who were like having a party on my behalf. But that said, it's nice to know exactly what's up, because my best friend, she was like, you know, this is bad. She said this, you know, a while back. And I was like, yeah, sure. But at least we know what we're dealing with. Right. You know, it's like, cancer is only cured if you go in and know, okay, this is how we're going to do this.
Exactly.
You know, and it's like anything else.
Well, it's the truth. There's nothing ever good that comes from burying your head in the sand. You always have to pick up and face it and deal with it and figure out how to get through the storm, because otherwise you're just not going to stand up again. And if that's okay with you, I don't know who's okay with that. That's not okay in my book. We got to figure out how to get through it. And I want to just make another observation. You know, I don't know if I told it to you, but you know me, I don't watch design programs. I mean, I just don't. I don't know. Look, I didn't grow up moving the furniture around like all of you guys did. And I'm in this industry because when I met my husband, he had a window treatment, shop he opened 6 months ago. And I say 1,000 times, if he had a copy machine shop, we'd have a hell of a copy machine business, and I'd have a podcast about copy machines. You know what I'm saying? There's no question in my mind, because I was enticed and lured by being able to sell. And then what happened was, in quite frankness, it turned out that I have an innate creativity that can capture color in my brain and does understand proportion and scale. And therefore, not only my skill as a salesperson, but then finding out that was there. Who knew I was creative? I had no idea. The combination was a win-win. And so here we are, right? But the simple fact is that I went down that line, and it's so silly, because what I wanted to say is I don't really have an interest in the design shows. I don't watch them. And but I remember when I was getting ready to meet you for the first time and interview for the first time, your PR rep said to me, blah, 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 and she's got this show on. And I remember saying we were going to interview on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And that Sunday night, I was like, well, LuAnn, you got to show the lady some respect and watch your show. Like, you can't just sit here and go, it's so fun, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah, right. And there was like, I think 4 of the episodes were up when I went to watch it. And I literally expected to be like, okay, watching the show. Okay, let me pick out something that I could admire, that I could genuinely compliment her on. And I thought, I'm going to, sit here through 1. And I ripped through all 4. And then I met you. And then I looked with anticipation for the next episodes to come out. And I was so truly, genuinely disappointed when the show was not on any longer. But where I'm going with all this, Taylor, is that what I know now is that you needed to go through this and get your basement foundation built and get your back of house organized to be ready for the crazy, crazy success that you're capable of creating. Because you're very successful now. But just imagine, Taylor, if that show or something else had really gone nuts, you would have been millions and millions, and you would have really had a quagmire on your hand. And now, no matter what comes at you, you are standing there, eyes wide open. You are on the front of the house, being the fabulous, talented, charismatic person you are, but you sit down at that desk and you know what's going on. That's very powerful, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel that way to you?
It does. And I have tried to kind of frame it just how you said, that yes, this was terrible, but in a lot of ways the stakes were low, all things considered. And I always think about the fact that, I'm still at this point single. I don't have kids yet, so like I can endure a lot of this volatility because I've had the like luxury of living on the edge. Yeah. I'd like to step off of that edge and,
just a little bit,
just a little tiny bit. But yeah, I've been like thinking to myself, because we are filming this new show concept and I feel really good about it and I feel good about the future. And I'm like, okay, so now when this hits, I'll be able to, and even just regular jobs too. It's like, we can handle this now because we actually know what we're doing, and we're not guessing, and we're not saying like, yeah, cool, you can write me a check for that much with no sales tax on it, no problem. Now I have this team of like barking dogs behind me who are like, we're not lifting a finger till you pay the sales tax, like stuff like that. Right. Yeah. Thanks.
No, it's so true. And to your point, you said the stakes weren't that high, right? But they were high enough for it to be real. Right.
Oh, see, yeah. And for me, they were very, very
that's
high.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Really?
So they're not as high as what you are capable of creating and where you're going to be. But the universe, the lesson was significant enough at the point in your career that you weren't going to go, oh, well, I don't know, maybe I don't have to worry. It was like, no. Yeah.
No doll face. You worry and worry hard, and worry I did. And actually, to the point of what I said earlier about my family. Like, my family is a loving shoulder to cry on, but there is no net there.
Right. And no silver spoon on the estate in Connecticut to lean on.
Yeah, and my amazing, wealthy, handsome, dynamic husband, who I know is on his way to me, he hasn't arrived yet, so I couldn't lean on that. And there's value for all of us to remember, lean on yourself, no matter what, and that's hard, but do it.
Well, and know how to, right? That's really what it is. Know how to, because a year ago you thought you were, right? Now you know that you really weren't. And that's a huge, huge gift from the universe, even though it came all wrapped up in prickly thorns.
Right. Which, when have we received a gift that didn't come with a real punch in the throat? You know, it's like, I wish you could learn these lessons without it being like that, but it doesn't seem to be the way it works.
Well, we don't take them to heart, right? We don't. Those lessons, we don't even realize they're lessons because we just went by them so quickly that we're like, we don't even think of it. It has to stop us in our tracks. I mean, listen, I'm going to share this. 2 weeks ago, you and I and Sandra were supposed to have dinner, and we had scheduled this darn dinner 6 weeks out. I missed the dinner, and you guys end up not going without me, but we miss it because I'm in the hospital. And that was my come to Jesus moment. Like, I ended up being in the hospital for 2.5 days, and I literally, I was sick as a son of a gun for 24 hours. I was beyond. But the other day and a half, I was fine. But for other explanations, they wanted to keep me for observation. And here's the thing. I didn't even tell you this part off air. The crazy truth of it was that my team switched my email that day, Tuesday, to G Suite, and it had not been converted to my phone yet. And I tried during the day to upload the G Suite Gmails to my phone, and I kept getting this error message. And when I was explaining it to all three assistants that I could lean on for this, none of them could help me over the phone. And so now I go to the hospital that night. 24 hours later, I'm really fine. They're just observing me. And I'm like lying in the bed and I'm thinking, well, I got my wits about me. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm tired. I'm a little this, but I'm like, oh, that's right. You have no email. I try and set it up again. Can't do it. Taylor, I spent 2 days sleeping like a puppy dog. I
was just going to say, there were a couple error messages that the universe was giving you. I'm glad you finally accepted.
This is what I'm saying. I finally was just
go to sleep.
Yes. I would be like, well, I don't think I'm really tired. I'll just close my eyes. And then I would wake up like 3 hours later. And then I would be sitting there and I was bored out of my mind. And like the lady next to me is watching Law and Order, which I normally love Law and Order, but I have no head for TV anymore. It really is very tough. And so I'm watching like 10 minutes. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just close my eyes again. 2 hours later, I did this I'm like a puppy dog. I'm like, I just keep sleeping. And
listen to what's going on around you. Yeah,
exactly.
The email not working is no mistake.
That's right. And that was what I said. And it took me the realization when I came out to look at it and say, the universe knows me well enough that if it just made me sick enough to be home, I would have worked right through it. Because I've done it for 3.5 years. I've worked through anything, no matter what. And the universe was like, look, lady, we need some sleep. We need some rest. You need an IV for a couple of days because you are completely out of balance. Yeah. And so it's like the same thing. It's like
what part of this message is not clear?
Right. And I have made drastic changes in the last couple of weeks since then. And it's the same as for you. It's like the stakes were high. They had to be high for you to get the message. But I know that what's coming is going to be so much greater than you imagine because that's who you are and the talent that you have. And now you're going to be like this Wonder Woman standing in the middle of this thing that you're creating. And you're going to be like, I got this. I love it. I love it. It does break my heart to think of you in that moment and that, but I'm so glad that you had LuAnn Live to look forward to. I'm so glad that you came to it.
Yeah. And it was so helpful to me to be in that room. And I said something and people started laughing and I was like, oh, right. Okay.
Yes, yeah. I'm funny. People
You're
like
funny.
me.
Okay. It was literally very healing for me to see how kind of people were looking at me. And I thought to myself, try to look at yourself like like that, you know, because like you're okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. No, the
So
room
thanks to everybody
loved
who
you.
was really nice to me that weekend. That was
No,
fantastic.
the room loved you. The room loved you. As soon as you started talking, I went, I love that kid. I love that kid. Like she is, and that was the thing. And to think about how now knowing that you were sitting there saying that, wow, oh wait, and it's almost like you started to see yourself through our eyes again and remembered that's who you were. It's like, right,
Exactly.
This is Taylor, this lady that they're all seeing, that's her.
Right. That's who you are. You're not a failure who's sitting inside of a spreadsheet weeping on top of it. Like that's in the past now. You can move forward. It's going to be good.
Right.
But,
Right. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Getting knocked to your knees is it's rough, but you always come out better.
Yes. Yeah. No, you do. If you learn the lesson, you do, right?
Yes.
Because, that's what I believe. I believe that the universe keeps giving you the same lesson until you learn it. And that's why I took notice this past couple of weeks ago. I just went, okay.
Yeah. I wonder if my body is telling me to slow down.
Maybe you need to have some nutrition and you just can't live on protein bars.
Right. Well,
protein bars and red wine. There's not the thing to keep a person alive.
That's a shocking piece of data, but I see the point.
Oh, well, I said it. I went, before I launched the podcast, I know of 11 years that I went without an illness because my employees were tracking it. I went 11 years without a cold, without a flu, without anything because they were just every year like remarking, this is crazy. They would keep track. It was insane. It was the whole reason why we first started to notice it and kept track of it. Since the podcast, 3.5 years, I have had a flu twice, this event 2 weeks ago. I've had probably 3 colds and strep throat. Like, okay, so that's it.
We know what the common denominator is here.
Right. Well, but the thing is, you see what I'm saying? That was what I meant a while ago. If the stakes aren't that high, the universe is throwing the lesson. But if the stakes weren't that high, we go over it like a speed bump. So just having 8 or 10 illnesses in a 3.5 year period when I went 11 years, that realization wasn't loud and clear enough for me. I was like, oh, this isn't good. You're not really making time for balance and exercise and eating well. You need to get a handle on this, blah, blah, blah. But it was a speed bump. This was a brick wall. And you see, and you need the brick wall when you're a son of a gun, stunad like I am sometimes.
As you rip through and run and you're having a glass of red wine, you're like, maybe I should get that multivitamin. Never mind. You just carry on. Yeah.
That's it. Whatever. We'll find it. We'll get one tomorrow. Protein bar again.
Yeah, exactly. Washed down by Little Red. Onward and upward.
Oh my goodness. Well, the bottom line is, the lesson is that if anybody is experiencing any sort of come to Jesus moment like Taylor had in her business, like I've had with my health in the last couple of months, you really do have to just stop and face the music and round the troops and do what you need to do, because
do the hard stuff.
Yeah, do the hard stuff. Right.
Do it.
Right. That's good. I love that. Do the hard thing. And because it's worth it when you come out and you do feel strong. I used to feel strong and now I'm starting to feel it again. Like I just, you need to get back to your center. And if it's your business, you need to get to the center of your business. You are the center of your business. You're not out here on the front only making rain. You have to be on both ends of it. That is your responsibility as the CEO. And it's funny because I say it all the time. What's so funny is one time I interviewed somebody and I noticed that the bio, the about her page, called herself the CEO and founder of her firm. And it struck me. And I mentioned it on the podcast. I said, why is it that our industry says the principal of XY design firm, but other industries say the CEO? I said, step into it. Be the CEO, right?
Yep.
Like that's what you are. Don't pretend, well, I'm the principal and, there's other people that no, you're the CEO. You are the CEO. Run it like a business, right?
Yeah. My mom got me this little, those like little tacky,
the plaques.
Like the old school plaques. Yeah. And it says like, Steve Smith accounting or whatever. Home Goods makes like the crappy, like, but they're funny. And it's like mom boss or something.
Yes. Yeah. Girl boss, boss lady, all that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my mom got me one that just said, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
And it was, a serious reminder to remember, get back to being the CEO.
Yes.
This is not, you are not here as just, like you just said, making it rain for everybody and out there. It's like, no. You're the CEO. Yeah. So step into it and really own it, because there's no other way.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, Taylor, I love your guts, kid. I do. I think you're amazing. And I can't thank you enough for sharing this. And I'm quite certain that especially everybody that was at LuAnn Live, jaw dropped the way mine did. But, such a gift for you to be so vulnerable to us and to share with us this, warning lesson. And if anybody can lock their business down and avoid this hard universe lesson because you shared it, then that's the payoff right there. And I thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I just think it's always easy to see the shiny part of someone's life, the Instagram version versus what's going on in real life. And it's good for us to all be honest with each other so that we can help each other.
Exactly. 100%. So I will see you in High Point in a month or two, lady. Yeah. All righty. Yes. Thanks so much, Taylor.
Thanks, LuAnn. See you soon.
Are you thinking how insane that is? How could that happen? You're probably thinking, how could it happen to Taylor Spellman? Okay. What I'm here to tell you is it happens all the time. You know why? It happens when you either don't understand the money side of your business, or even when you do understand it, you hand it over to someone else. This is an undeniable reality. I've heard it firsthand, dozens of stories like this. It's sad. And it is because people like Taylor are open and share it, that maybe if you are guilty of not taking ownership of the money in your business, maybe you will commit now to changing this. I'm begging you. Why work so hard and possibly risk losing your business, just like Taylor almost did? Okay? Now, what can you do about it? Well, I have a couple of suggestions for you. Number one, you could join me in High Point, October 18th, for my one-day coaching event, the Power Talk Friday Tour. For this particular tour, I will have both Peter Lang, the designer CPA, and the VIN man. Both of these men are highly qualified to sit with you and explain how to watch and understand your money. The things you need to know, the questions you need to ask, and the help you need to begin to be an active partner in your finances. Like Taylor said, it feels so good to know where my money is now. All right. The other thing Taylor said was LuAnn Live was my lifeline. So if you need a lifeline, join me, Peter, Vin, Nicole Heimer, Kay Whitaker, and Eileen Hahn. This day is limited to a very small group of designers, purposefully designed this way so that you can ask specific questions about your business. This is a 2-to-1 ratio coaching. It doesn't get much better than that. Go to powertalkfriday.com to learn about it. The other thing that you really could do, without spending a heck of a lot of money, is you could pick up my second book, A Well-Designed Business, The Power Talk Friday Experts, Volume 1. You can find that at luannniagara.com/book2. Now, you will find chapters there written by Michelle Williams, who is a certified Profit First coach and a business coach for interior designers and other creatives. You'll also find a chapter there by Peter Lang, the designer CPA. So if coaching is not in your future right now, if that's just not where you're at, I know that if you at least read these 2 chapters, you'll get started in getting a grasp on your money. Okay? So I just want to say too, I have gotten so many direct messages on Instagram and Facebook from dozens of you with pictures of you reading your book, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea next to the book, a glass of wine next to the book, and then telling me how much value you are getting from reading this book. I know it because I put together these experts and I asked them specifically because of their superpowers to put their effort and their information and their content in one place for you. And what I'm going to ask you is, as much as I love those pictures, I truly do, if you've read the book and you've enjoyed it and you've learned something for it, if you would go to Amazon and review it for me, I'd be so grateful. Because you know that Amazon googly algorithm thing really likes to see the reviews. All right. So please continue to send me the pictures and the notes. I love it. But if you'd go there, I'd appreciate it. All right. So are you ready to draw the line in the sand? Is today the day? If you are out there, whether you're in business 1 to 2 years, you're one of my hashtag baby designers, or you're in business 8, 9, 10, you're one of my rising designers, or possibly you've been in business for 15, 20, 25 years, you're a seasoned designer. It's possible that you're still out there not really understanding your money. I know it's possible. I 100% get it. But unless you have a VIN man, you've got to take responsibility, okay? You must be the CEO. Isn't that what Taylor said? Be the CEO, all right? Take her advice to heart. Take her lesson to heart. Learn from her. Do not be in this situation. Do not close your eyes. Make the commitment to yourself. Decide. Decide today, all right? Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.